Welcome back to another episode of Whether or Not. I'm your host, Jonathan Domow, joined by our forecaster, Rebecca Newell. And Rebecca, it has been awfully chilly lately.
It has been. We had that cold front that moved through on Sunday, but the conditions that we're seeing this weekend, although a bit rainy, should not be nearly as cold as what we saw at the beginning of this week.
Thanks, Rebecca. We'll hear more about that later in the forecast, but right now, here's Nature in the News.
A violent tornado ripped through the southern Brazilian state of Paraná on Friday night, leaving 6 people dead and hundreds injured in one of the region's worst storms in recent years. The town of Rio Bonito do Iguaçu was hit hardest. Roofs were ripped off dozens of homes, vehicles were overturned, and entire blocks of buildings collapsed. Winds topped 155 miles per hour, supporting EF3 level strength. State officials declared a state of emergency, dispatched federal aid, and began search and rescue operations amid widespread damage and power outages. This tornado formed due to a severe clash between warm, humid air and a strong cold front, which underlines how the Southern Hemisphere is not immune to intense tornadoes, even outside the traditional U.S. tornado belt. This destructive event serves as a reminder that extreme convective storms are not only a problem for the U.S.
50 years ago, this past Monday, the SS Edmund Fitzgerald was hauling iron ore across Lake Superior when it sank on November 10, 1975. All 29 crew members were lost as a massive storm, often called a Witch of November, slammed the region with winds over 70 miles per hour and waves towering more than 25 feet high. This kind of storm forms when a deep low-pressure system sweeps across the Midwest and collides with cold Canadian air over the lakes. That long stretch of open water, called a fetch, allows waves to grow and combine into dangerous walls of water. The ship was made famous by a song with the same name by Gordon Lightfoot, which encapsulated the story for generations to come. The sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald remains a lesson in nature's force and a reason scientists still study Great Lakes storms to this day.
3 people were killed and at least 15 injured on Tenerife and Spain's Canary Islands after a sudden, massive waves and storm-driven seas swept coastlines this past weekend. In separate incidents, a 43-year-old man fishing in La Guancha was pulled into the ocean, another man was found floating near El Cabezo Beach, and a 79-year-old Dutch woman suffered a heart attack after being swept off a pier in Puerto de la Cruz. Authorities had issued warnings for strong winds and dangerous sea conditions, urging the public to stay away from piers and breakwaters, but many still ventured out for photos as the waves surged. Risk of coastal storm surge and wave action hazards, especially in popular tourist zones, can be incredibly dangerous. This event serves as a reminder of how quickly coastal conditions can turn deadly.
California has always dealt with cycles of drought, but a recent study shows that as dry conditions intensify, encounters between humans and wildlife increase significantly. When rivers, streams, and vegetation dry out, animals like mountain lions, coyotes, and bears are pushed out of their usual habitats. They travel farther into neighborhoods and towns in search of food and water, which leads to more sightings, more roadway encounters, and more dangerous close calls. During the most severe drought periods, reports of these interactions can rise by more than 50%. This happens because the drought stresses entire ecosystems, shrinking vegetation and reducing natural food sources. As prey animals move around to survive, predators are pushed into new areas as well. With their habitat strained, wildlife takes risks it normally would avoid, leading to more encounters with people. And as drought continues to intensify across the West, these interactions are likely to become an even more common part of life in California.
After a cold and blustery start to the week, things are shaping up to be quite the mixed bag this weekend. We have this high pressure system to our southwest, in the northeastern part of the area, and that's going to be inhibiting a lot of clouds from forming over the State College area. We are expecting partly cloudy skies, so it's not going to be entirely clear, but in the way of precipitation, it's going to be dry. So if you have any outdoor activities that you need to get done, whether it be raking up the rest of those leaves or even just doing general errands, I would recommend Friday, because on Saturday, whoa, look at all of that rain. We have this low pressure system to our northwest that's going to be bringing in tons and tons of precipitation all throughout the region. And that's going to be widespread just throughout the entirety of the day. We might even see some cracks of thunder over in the northwestern part of the Commonwealth, but again, nothing that convective over State College. And those rain showers are going to last into Sunday morning, where we have breezy conditions after they leave. Wind gusts up to 25 to 30 miles per hour on Sunday. So if you go outside, although it's not supposed to be entirely that cold, those wind gusts can make it seem quite chilly. Make sure you bring a jacket. Friday, again, it's going to be the driest day of the week at 50 degrees and partly sunny skies. So if you have anything to do outside, make sure you do it on Friday, whether it be raking leaves, getting groceries. If you're doing the whole groceries thing, I would recommend doing it a little bit earlier in the day, because it's going to be very, very cold Friday night with a low of 28 degrees. Saturday, we see the rain moving in, and it's going to last all day into Saturday night and into Sunday morning, where we have a high of 53, although it is going to be rainy and very, very windy. Again, wind gusts up to 25 to 30 miles per hour. And now, here's your feature on the Aurora Borealis.
Earlier this week, the United States got to see one of nature's most beautiful phenomena. The Aurora Borealis are commonly known as the Northern Lights. This came after a G4 solar storm impacted Earth, causing the lights to be seen as far south as Florida. But what are the Northern Lights? How are they formed? What does G4 mean? And how do you see the different types of colors? Let's take a look. The Northern Lights are more than just a colorful sky show. They're a visible sign of space weather. Known scientifically as the Aurora Borealis in the Northern Hemisphere and the Aurora Australis in the Southern Hemisphere, these shimmering curtains of light are caused by charged particles from the sun colliding with Earth's upper atmosphere. They often appear as glowing waves, arcs, or even pulsating pillars that seem to dance across the sky. But behind that beauty is a fascinating process of physics and magnetism that connects our planet directly to the sun. It all begins 93 million miles away. The sun is constantly releasing energy and particles through what's called the solar wind, a stream of electrons and protons that flows outwards into space. Most days, Earth's magnetic field acts as a shield, deflecting this wind and keeping our atmosphere safe. But when the sun becomes more active through solar flares or massive eruptions called coronal mass ejections, huge bursts of charged particles race towards Earth. When they arrive, they interact with our planet's magnetic field, compressing it and sending those particles spiraling down toward the magnetic poles. Once they reach our upper atmosphere, about 60 to 300 miles above the surface, those particles collide with atoms of oxygen and nitrogen. Each collision releases energy in the form of light, and 1 million of those tiny flashes combine to form the aurora's glow. This week's display that reached as far south as Florida came from a G4 level geomagnetic storm, a rating on the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Space Weather Scale that runs from G1, which is minor, to G5, which is extreme. A G4 storm means Earth was hit by an especially strong surge of solar energy, powerful enough to expand the aurora oval, which is the ring-shaped region near the poles where the lights usually form. There have been 3 such instances of a G4 or higher level geomagnetic storm in the past 2 years. A G5 in May of 2024, followed 5 months later by a G4 in October of 2024, one that I personally got to experience here in State College. Although these strong storms create incredible light shows, they can also affect technology here on Earth. Anything from temporary radio blackouts and GPS errors to potential electrical grid fluctuations are on the table. That's why space weather scientists keep constant watch on the sun's activity to forecast these events days in advance. If you've ever seen photos or videos of the aurora, you'll notice it's not always the same color. Each color tells a story about the altitude of the collision and the type of gas being struck. Green is the most common, produced when oxygen about 60 to 150 miles high releases light energy. Red comes from oxygen as well, but much higher in the atmosphere, around 200 miles up, and it's less common because it requires more energy. Other colors such as blue and purple come from nitrogen molecules found closer to the surface, often blending with green to make turquoise or pink edges. No one aurora is like another, as its colors, motion, and brightness all depend on the energy of the solar storm and the composition of the air above us. Normally, the northern lights are confined to regions near the poles. Places such as Alaska, Canada, Iceland, Norway, and Finland often see the aurora borealis every year. But when a geomagnetic storm strengthens, the auroral oval expands southward. This past week, the lights were visible across much of the northern and central parts of the United States, with some reports as far south as Florida being able to see the light show. Many websites and apps now issue aurora forecasts based on what's happening on the sun, which gives stargazers a few hours' notice when conditions look promising. And while winter often brings the most reliable displays due to longer nights, auroras can occur at any time of the year, as long as the solar wind is strong enough and skies are dark enough to see them. Right now might be the perfect time, as we're heading towards what's known as a solar maximum, the peak of the sun's 11-year activity cycle. That means solar flares and geomagnetic storms like this may become more frequent over the next year or two, bringing more opportunities for aurora sightings across the country. The northern lights aren't just a pretty sight, they're a real-time example of how powerful our sun is, and how closely connected we are to what happens in space. As solar activity increases over the next few years, events like this could become more common, even reaching places that are rarely seen. So whether you're watching from Alaska or right here in Pennsylvania, be sure to stay up to date with the aurora forecast, as you might be able to see one of Earth's most pretty natural phenomena. For Weather or Not, I'm Frank Gargione.
This weekend's conditions are a bit of a snapshot at what next week's gonna look like weather-wise. So again, starting Friday, we're gonna have calm conditions with overall partly cloudy skies due to that high pressure system sitting to our southwest, inhibiting too many clouds from forming on Friday with a high of 50 and a low of 28. On Saturday, we have that system move in and that warm front bringing generalized precipitation all over the northwestern region of the United States, with a high of 53 and 41. And those rain showers are going to continue into Sunday morning, but by the time the afternoon rolls around, things should be clearing up with a high of 53 and a low of 32. But on Sunday, it is going to be breezy with those wind gusts of 25 to 30 miles per hour. So again, don't forget your jacket if you're going out on Sunday. Now for your extended forecast, it's again going to look like a mixed bag, similar to this weekend, with below average temperatures overall, but nothing like what we saw at the beginning of this week on Monday, Tuesday. Now, this Monday is going to be partly sunny with temperatures just a little bit below average. Tuesday sees the return of some of those showers. Wednesday clearing up just a bit. And Thursday, Friday, again, we see the potential for more showers to make its way through our region. Now for your whiz quiz answer.
If you said A, Virga, you'd be correct. Virga is the name of precipitation that falls but evaporates before it reaches the ground. This happens when precipitation from the clouds encounters dry air closer to the surface, which causes evaporation.
Right, this actually happened Wednesday morning of this week. I saw rain on the radar, but when I looked outside, I didn't see anything falling to the ground. So I realized I didn't need my umbrella that day.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's show. Join us again next week for another edition of Whether or Not.